I'll be honest, I have no idea how it's happening again, but League is going wild. I don't really know what happened at the end of last season, maybe Riot took our feedback to their hearts, but wave after wave, Riot is now delivering good cosmetics, great gameplay, and they also sprinkle it with a little bit of fluff. And it's all working out really well so far. And after the latest Arcana drops, which were received really well, as well as the Darkin skins, which were aimed at a very specific audience, and that is all following up Classic Victor, Riot then just decided to reveal this. If you need time to change your pants, please pause the video. So, let's talk about this, as well as another thing which might bring up some PTSD later. That one's gonna be fun. So, the main drop of the latest PvE is the Flora Fatalis skin line. This one was first teased at the end of the trailer for the Spirit Blossom season. There we got to see Lissandra, and I do remember saying that she did look kinda like a clicker from The Last of Us. So let's have a look at that skin first. And yep, that's a clicker alright. I think that word might become an insult after WASD takes off. Anyway, the theme is pretty flowers that can and will kill you, which is reflected both in the name of the skin line as well as Lissandra's recall. And honestly, overall, it is like a darker version of the classic Elderwood. And for Lissandra specifically, it works amazingly well. They managed to combine all the new flowers with ice in all the spell effects. And so while her Q turns into a spiky root, the slow is still perfectly readable. Her root then turns into a proper root, as it should, and it even opens up a little bit of purpley void under the target. Her E is cool because the mark on the floor turns into a flower. It now has a trail of petals and roots following it, with the claw itself still reading as bunch of roots. But that all takes us to the best spell, which is her ultimate. Now when she uses it on an enemy, it is fine. It is kinda like a glorified version of the root, except now you can see there is a garden sprawling around it. But the highlight of this spell is when she is using it on herself. She essentially turns herself into the proper Zyra fantasy. It looks gorgeous. Now after this, as it is the norm, of course, this skin also does have chroma skins. And I'm happy to say that these are good. They are all different, they are all very thematic, and so thank God they just work. And speaking of working, you can't exactly say that Soraka works for one specific reason. So yes, Soraka is also getting a skin here, and I have to say that the overall theme fits her. I love how her legs are just sticks, which is very different from the classic Soraka. But if you look at the model, you can see that it kinda looks washed out. At least it does compared to her splash art. Because there, all her colors are very vibrant. And again, especially her hair is kinda just pale. So Riot should probably fix that. When it comes to the spells though, it all works quite well. Her Q looks very deadly and beautiful when you hit enemies with it, because at that point the flower actually turns green. The heal summons a swarm of butterflies around the target, very on brand, with the E almost looking like a collapsing universe, which then ends with an explosion of butterflies. It is all very unexpected but very pretty, with her ultimate then looking kinda like Karthus' ultimate if it was instant. Maybe that is on purpose. I mean, it does look great regardless. And the heal mark is now a spiky flower. And most importantly, the chromas also work for the most part. There are still some odd ones that mix up some greens, purples and pinks, but the ones that stick to proper color palettes look great. Which leads us to the last skin which really caught everyone's attention, and that would be Fiddlesticks. Because goddamn that splash art goes hard, with the theme fitting him really well too. Fiddlesticks is essentially a flower mimic, which makes the recall especially creepy. So his Q throws out a flower parasite which functions as the fear. The drain perfectly matches the color palette of his body, making it seem like the body itself is stretching out. With his E then being especially fancy, because the mark on the ground looks great and the design of the scythe is amazing as well. And lastly, the ultimate is a storm of dark butterflies and some flowers. which apparently also have eyes. I mean, it makes sense if they are parasites. Though the one thing that is really cool here are the sound effects. The entire thing feels very uncanny here. And again, while the chromas are not as good as Lissandra's, they still serve their purpose. Hallelujah. But while that is it for the 3 new Flora Fatalis skins, there is one extra surprise. As was teased many times before, Xin Zhao is getting the Trials of Twilight skin. This one should be tied to the last act of the season, meaning that it should be based on lore. Though unfortunately, as we go through the spells, you'll see that there is no story being teased. I mean, the recall shows Xin just spreading petals around. Though there is one peculiar thing. Why does his challenging mark look like the mark of death? I'm sure that is just a coincidence. Anyway, the strikes in his Q look quite magical here. The W almost looks like he's casting a spell. The dash is cool because Xin Zhao almost turns spirity. It is as if he's entering the spirit realm for the dash. With the ultimate once again being a bluish spirity arena. Aurora would like to see the receipt. Now surprisingly, this skin does also have chromas, which are fine, but that is not the biggest twist of this skin. Because you see, since this skin is lining up with the end of the season as well as Worlds, well, it turns out that this skin is the World skin. That's right, we are not getting the bluish-grayish one which we've gotten every year so far. Instead, it is gonna be this skin which celebrates the theme of the season. Which I'm kinda fine with. It is sad that Riot is breaking the tradition of championship skins. But honestly, we are getting a lot of different vague meta skins around this time anyway. This is when we usually get the World skins, as well as the Hall of Fame skins, as well as Victoria skins, as well as Conquerors. So sure, I'm fine with the World skins going away. But honestly, I kinda like the theme. Can we not take a different theme away instead? Oh wait, is that why the Jarvan Darkin skin took the same color palette? Is that the one replacing it? Anyway, speaking of esports themes, there is one more thing that is happening, which is the esports team's emotes. Now, just as I said this, I might have triggered some PTSD. Because you might remember that last year, Riot did the same thing and they allowed the teams to design their own emotes. And because the teams wanted to sell as many emotes as possible, they all wanted to get as close to crossing the line as possible. Which resulted in a few emotes that had to be censored. For example, you may remember the Pengu with the bait, where the bait was usually used for something else. So of course it was replaced with a fish. But more importantly, 100 Thieves had the small PP Akali, which also had to be censored. And so did we get any outstanding ones this time around? Well, let's have a look. And thankfully, SkinSpotlights put together all the emotes that were revealed so far. And here we can immediately see some that are gonna be big. The first one that stands out is the one for Shopify Rebellion, where they recreated the cat meme. Except now everyone is pointing knives at Yumi. As they probably should. Pain Gaming, being on brand I guess, is also recreating a meme. Then we get a bunch of standard ones. Nothing too crazy here, after which we get to Carmine Corp, where we can see Jinx looking at your match history. And here I have to say, they've done it again. Because last year Carmine were the ones with the most popular emote. And so they are trying to pull it off this year again. Speaking of which, do we have an imposter here? Taking the theme that was the most popular last year, eh? Next we have Team Liquid with the classic thumbs up meme. Leviathan is pulling off the Wood division. That's a podcast I haven't heard in a while. Then you got some generic ones, which could also be good. SK Gaming went for the cool guy meme. Dignitas went for the pointing meme, which is followed with some more generic ones, which are fine. Eventually we get to the Praying Scion, which has potential. There is also a funny emote for catching your flight back home. After you lose, of course. T1 went for the Faker Pengu. Of course they did. With the rest also being in a generic-ish territory. And so what did we learn here? No one crossed the line, and most people went for some kind of a meme, because those have the potential to sell. But that is it for this PBE batch. Overall, this is a good cosmetic drop which people will appreciate, but that is still not it, because against all odds, Riot did also change the Summoner's Rift. Now yes, I know that Riot said that we are going back to the classic Summoner's Rift, because it is lining up with Worlds, and for Worlds you probably need the normal Rift for the broadcast. And so they did add in one new thing, with the new being the old Summoner's Cup. Because yes, in case you missed the news, the old cup is back, which is the superior one. I still never understood why they came out with the new design. I guess there was some kind of partnership and the deal now ran out. And now that it's out, Riot can do whatever they want. And speaking of doing whatever you want, the streamer mode is also up. Do I still count as a streamer?